Well, major news overnight in the Middle East with the Palestinian Authority government resigning on Monday. The move hailed a success, or a step forward at least, by the US, who want a reformed Palestinian Authority to govern Gaza instead of Hamas when the war is over. Joining me now, Liberal MP Julian Leeser. Thank you so much for your time. Look, this is
Sharri.
significant news. I mean, the President, Mahmoud Abbas, hasn't resigned. There's no indication he's going anywhere. There hasn't been a presidential election since 2005. So why this move to have the Palestinian Authority government resign?
Well, I think the Palestinian Authority government has lacked a certain legitimacy. As you say, there hasn't been a presidential election for nearly 20 years. There are not regular elections there in the Palestinian Authority more broadly. And I think the general view is that if there were elections, that Hamas would actually take over in the West Bank, as well as they had run Gaza. And so that's not in really anybody's interest, least of all the Palestinian people. But the Palestinian Authority has failed to deliver for their own people. It's widely regarded as corrupt and ineffective. And the US have been talking about them having a role in Gaza post the conflict, and that this being a precondition. Whether they will or not, that will all be a matter that is still subject to negotiation. And as long as Hamas is running around, as long as it continues to want to drive Israel out of existence, not just Israel, but Jews more broadly, as long as it maintains its weapons system and as long as it refuses to surrender, the war will continue in Gaza.
Yeah. The Albanese government is being urged to stop a pro-Palestinian activist who's described Hamas terrorists as freedom fighters from being given an Australian visa. This is Leila Khaled. She's hijacked not one but two planes. She's part of the terror group, the PFLP. It's hard to believe any event organisers would want her to come to Australia. Look, Julian, there's freedom of speech and then there's hate speech. And surely the government has to step in and stop this visa being issued.
Sharri, this should be the easiest decision Andrew Giles has ever made, because why would we give a visa to somebody who's been a multiple aeroplane hijacker, who's coming to Australia to promote a range of views that are well outside the mainstream and may well be inciting behaviour here. But I'll tell you something that this all tells you about, and that is what is happening in the far left of Australian politics, in the sewers in which the Green Party swim. And this is, you've got these people on the far left who are calling for noted terrorists and hijackers to come and address them. That says that there's a real sickness there. As I've said previously, anti-Semitism has become almost an ideology in the far left of politics and among the Greens. And I want to see people like Adam Bandt actually calling out this conference. Instead, I think you'll see him and his acolytes embracing it. It's not just enough to not grant this person a visa. I think the government needs to look at what role the Safety Commissioner can play, what role the Minister for Communications and the Minister for Home Affairs can play in the event that she's not granted a visa and she spews her hate virtually from some location overseas. This shouldn't be allowed to happen in Australia, not in 2024. This is not the country we know and love.
Yeah, especially when we've got anti-Semitism exploding and a lack of social cohesion on the streets and so many incidents and attacks and even physical aggression.
You're right, Sharri, but I don't think there's time for this at any time, frankly. I mean, I think that the left are on the far left here are on a frolic, and it's a dangerous frolic, and it's a frolic that is flirting with the most extreme people on the planet here, people who are noted hijackers, noted terrorists, and they're trying to bring these people to Australia to talk to Australians. I think that's a really bad development.
No, I completely agree. Now, just quickly before you go, I want to ask you about former Prime Minister Scott Morrison. He gave his valedictory speech today. It's kind of been difficult, I think, for someone who has served this country for I don't know his exact period as an MP, but for decades in Parliament, years. Thank you, 16 years, to hear how people have just smashed him one after the other, even on this channel tonight. What do you think?
Well, I'm proud of Scott Morrison. I'm proud to call him a friend. I think every Liberal should be proud of him. This is the bloke that stopped the boats. This is the bloke that stopped us getting Bill Shorten as Prime Minister. Shorten is a man who has never seen a tax rise he didn't love. This is a man who basically transformed Australia's relationship with the world. There's been a lot of talk on the program already about the importance of AUKUS, and it will be important. But it's not just AUKUS. It's also the relationship with India, bringing India into the Quad, the extraordinary trade agreement that we got that's providing opportunities for Australians and Indians like never before. As you've pointed out, his steadfastness on Israel and also his steadfastness on Ukraine too. If Scott Morrison were Prime Minister, you can bet your bottom dollar we would be sending the Taipan helicopters to Ukraine today. And as a Prime Minister domestically, he had the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. He steered us through the pandemic, and he did a great job. I mean, you think about how few people in this country died compared to so many of our other similar allies around the world. You think about the way in which the economy rebounded. I think this is a bloke who can hold his head high, and I'm sick of seeing the obsession of Anthony Albanese and the Labor Party with him. I'd rather Albanese spend some time looking forward to the future rather than back to the past. And there shouldn't be Liberals criticising somebody who I think will be regarded as among the first rank of Liberal Prime Ministers.
There you go. Very strong defence of Scott Morrison there. Julian Leeser, thank you very much for joining me this evening.